Episode 11 of the On the Air podcast starring you and today's guest. From Peoria, Illinois, being metal heavy and soft at the core, he's a wrestling and metal music enthusiast. He's the host of the groundbreaking Metal for Brains podcast and the three-handled moss-covered wrestling podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at SpaceTruckin92. Please welcome Corey. So this week on the show we have Corey. You follow him on Twitter at SpaceTruckin92. He's the host of the Metal for Brains podcast. What's going on, man?
What's good, man? So
we were kind of like talking a little before the show about how you didn't know that my name was Corey and how that was odd.
I now feel like we're like lifelong friends because of that.
Let me tell you why I feel the same way. Is because we both spell it the same way, Corey. And anytime I see Cory or Cori, I'm like, that's the wrong way to spell it, and that's trash.
Cori is the most annoying, obnoxious shit I've ever seen.
Yo,
or like Corie.
I don't get it. Let me tell you what bothers me when I'm at work and I send an email and they send me one back that addresses my name, or we're using our instant messenger at work, and my name is clearly spelled out Corey, and they respond Cory.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time too. That's why, like, when people started spelling my name Coreh on Twitter, I was just like, I'm going with it. Whatever. It's better than Cory.
See, I have friends that do that, and the reason why they do it is because when my dad says it, that's kind of how it sounds, because he's an old Southern black dude. So it sounds like when he's calling me Corey, that's how he sounds. So that's how they do it.
Yeah, like I'm from the south side of Chicago. All my friends, like, they'd yell it out Coray.
Corey.
Yeah, like that.
So check it out. Metal for Brains, the podcast, and correct me if I'm wrong. Metal for Brains is a podcast about black people showing their appreciation for heavy metal. But what I found to be most unique about it is that you guys take the time to highlight the origins of black metal artists. If you wouldn't mind, educate us on the origins of black metal artists, because of course, like many other people, when we think of metal, you inherently think white artists. So when I listened in, I was like, wait, when you guys said black metal, I was thinking the black metal genre, but no, you guys meant like African American artists performing metal. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, like, the earliest black, like, metal band that I can think of is like a band that everyone knows is Living Colour.
Yep.
Everyone knows them at least through CM Punk's theme music.
Exactly.
Or maybe Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But they're not really recognized as a metal band. They're just kind of recognized as a heavy rock band, and I see them as a metal band. And so there's always been this kind of a view that black people don't participate or don't listen to these kinds of genres, which, like, the band called Death, which is one of the first punk bands, and they're all black from Detroit, and, like, there was Afro-punk started on a documentary about, black people in punk music and extreme genres. And I actually just started reading a book about black women in, like, extreme rock and metal genres.
Really?
Yeah. If you give me a second, I could go find the title for it. Yeah, it's called What Are You Doing Here? A Black Woman's Life and Liberation in Heavy Metal. It's by Elena Dawes. It's actually a really fucking cool book.
That's amazing. See, I had no idea. First it was, with me, it was like, it was an eye opener for black metal artists, and now you're saying there's women.
Yeah.
And to set the stage for the podcast, your podcast is, what is it, 3 or 4 of you guys?
Depending on who's available, yeah, it's 3 or 4.
Okay.
It's me, my friend Shaggy Black, Professor B Love from Twitter. His name's Brian, and my friend Paul, who's on Twitter as Deus Ex Human.
Okay.
And I know that sounds like a sausage fest, and I feel guilty about it every single time because I want women to be on our podcast too because they deserve a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, our first guest on the show was Scott Reeder, who is the bassist for a legendary band called Caius, which was Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age's first band.
Oh, wow.
And so, but the second guest that we had after him was Alicia Warrington, who's like, she's this black chick, and she's played drums on like Hannah Montana and Kelly Osbourne shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I found out about her because I was watching like Coachella TV last year, and she's drumming for Kate Nash right now, which is like, she's kind of like the big name in British feminist pop punk type music.
Okay.
And I was like, who's this black girl playing drums? And a few people pointed me to her Twitter, and we ended up becoming friends, and she was our second guest, and I'm like, I'd love to have her on for every episode, but she's a busy girl, so we just end up having.
That's dope.
She has this one woman metal band project called Dorn, and so she plays everything on it. She does the vocals, she plays drums, she plays bass, keyboards, guitars, and it's fucking awesome.
Wait, she records it separately, like to blend it in?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like it's all like it's all her recording it separately in studio, but it's all her.
Have you heard of anyone else using that technique? Because I haven't.
Well, actually, the first Foo Fighters album is all Dave Grohl.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. All right. Well, there
And
you go.
I totally didn't mean to hashtag well, actually, you there.
It's all good.
But yeah, actually, that's kind of a common practice. Like, I'm trying to think of some other ones, and they're skipping, whatever.
That's all good. Don't worry about it. No problem. We can come back to it if it comes back up. And so the 4 hosts on your show, they're all black, right?
Yes, we are all black.
Okay, all right. I just want because
Some people question my blackness, but I am black too.
So let me tell you why I brought that up. Because the first time I listened to your podcast, I didn't realize I was listening. I didn't realize you were black, which isn't a problem. But I was like, all right, because you guys it was highlighting. I think it was the episode of you were drawing, and we'll get into that in a second, where you were drawing the comparison between hip hop and metal. And in some of the conversations, I was like, well, huh. So when I went back and I was about to comment on your Twitter, and then I read your Twitter, but I was like, well, wait, he might be black. Then I was so that's what that was. So if I had that error in listening, others may have too. But I think that kind of sets the stage for just exactly what your podcast is. So that's great. Black people appreciating black metal, because that is a
well, not just black metal. We just talk about like all kinds of metal, all kinds of rock. So yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that episode. It was in March, where you guys drew the parallels between hip hop and metal. So for those that I know that listen to my show, they may not realize that there were. I know I didn't realize there was such a strong parallel between the two, and I want you to educate my listeners on that, because you guys made some really strong points.
Well, they both have similar histories when it comes to like demonization in the media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, biggest the biggest thing I can point to is like Marilyn Manson being blamed for the Columbine shooting, and everyone blaming like hip hop for whatever violence is going on at whatever point. And we talked about a lot about stuff that people don't normally talk about when it comes to metal music, which is like the origins of black metal, how all of them were kind of pretty much gangsters, like mobsters.
Really?
Yeah, like people would be getting killed at concerts and stuff, and it's really something that gets glossed over in Western media, and it's something that whenever it happens in a hip hop setting, it's like completely focused on. And obviously, like everyone knows about the Norwegian or Swedish or whatever death metal bands who go around burning churches and all of that shit.
Yeah.
They're not really people that we fuck with at all.
Let's put that out there real quick. We listen to metal, but we don't fuck with that type of metal.
Yeah, no. We distance ourselves away from those kind of people as far as possible. But like, there's a lot of extreme genres that don't get glossed up or that don't get talked about compared to hip hop, which is all forefront. It's dissected in the white media and stuff like that.
Okay. How do you mentioned about how people like to associate metal with demonic symbols and things like that? How do you address like being a metal listener and a metal enthusiast? How do you address that when someone says something ignorant like, you're listening to Satan's music because all they know is Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bat. Like that's all they know. They know is Marilyn Manson and his weird eye. That's all they know.
So if I'm in a bad mood, I'm just gonna like dissect religion and stuff like that because it's something fun to do. But if I'm in a good mood, I'll just say, there's a lot of heavy metal music, especially from the 80s, that was kind of trying to find the word. It was confused as satanic, like say for instance, "Number of the Beast" by Iron Maiden. People heard the chorus 666, the number of the beast, and they drew a parallel for it to be worshiping Satan, when the song in actuality is about someone dreaming that Satan's taking over their dreams and fighting against them. There's a lot of like Christian metal bands, and I'm not just talking about Creed, fuck them, but like I want to say one of the members of Slayer, Tom Araya, is a Catholic, and so they use a lot of Catholic imagery and language in their music, and he says it doesn't feel like it goes against his Catholicism because in actuality, to believe that Satan exists, you have to be a Christian or at some point,
Yeah.
But it's not. At some point, it started out as like it being different music, because people said rock and roll was Satanist, and that was because it was different. And at some point, people just started being trolls and started writing songs about Satan just to scare people, which I relate to. I relate to a lot, just being trolls.
Do you write music yourself?
I don't write music. I do write like poetry and stuff, and sometimes I'll go back to it and create a melody in my head for it. But I don't know how to write music, so a huge setback. I do play drums though.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. What's the difference between metal and rock?
Um, there is a point where the line gets blurred
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, Living Color, they get confused as just a rock band, which they have a lot of heavy songs, and I really feel like the difference between the two is the heaviness, and not just like uh, sound wise with like heavy guitars and whatnot, just like the extreme lyrics and vocal delivery,
Mm-hmm.
but they're pretty much cousins. Like, they're in the same family of music, but at some point, like, metal turns into a completely different genre. But they do, like, have a weird middle period. But rock music is more like, uh, it's broad. I guess it includes a lot of bands like anything from Led Zeppelin, Queens of the Stone Age,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to I guess Coldplay. Um,
Okay.
um, and metal is more like your Metallica, Opeth, Megadeth, and Dream Theater, Living Color, stuff like that.
So here's I asked this question to someone not long ago, and they were telling me the difference between rock and metal is in metal they do all that obnoxious screaming. And so my first thought was, well, wait, now I've listened to quite a bit of Metallica, and I've seen them listed as metal, but I haven't really heard all the obnoxious screaming in that.
You know what? People confuse metal as a whole as death metal.
Oh, okay, okay. So tell us the difference.
So, so death metal is, it's built around blast beats and a bunch of technical bullshit, and very harsh vocals, screaming. Uh, there's pig squealing, all that fun stuff, and there's a lot of metal music that like utilizes that and clean singing, like Opeth. Opeth is one of my favorite bands. If you listen to a song of theirs like Harlequin Forest, it starts out with him singing like a normal person would, beautiful voice, and then later on in the song, he starts growling, and for that kind of band, reeling it back to the whole Satanism thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of metal bands actually use like the difference between clean singing and harsh singing, like screaming, to convey the differences in the lyrics. So like the clean singing will be like the good angel on your shoulder, and the harsh screaming will be like the Satan trying to get you to do something bad, trying to lure you in with your temptations. And a lot of songs end up turning into like a power struggle between what's right and what's wrong. And like
So
it's a lot
it's
deeper
kind of
than,
poetic in a sense.
yeah, it is. It is. Um, yeah, it very much is.
Okay, cool.
Um, I'm trying to think, like, because one of the reasons why I did start putting music into my show, which I haven't received a cease and desist yet. I wholly expect that to happen soon. If so, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. um, I started doing that because, like, I wanted to show people how varied of a genre metal can be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have the intro song be whatever, and it'll have like a jazzy type song in the middle, because there's actually a lot of metal that's just based on jazz music. Um, there'll be like a ballad, and then there'll be just super hardcore in your face like nonsense. um, Actually, I said in one of the last episodes, like, all black people love System of a Down.
Yeah. Yeah, I fuck with them.
And they're one of those metal bands that people don't really realize is a metal band. They just recognize them as a band that is good.
Yeah.
And so, and they don't scream that much, at least.
Exactly. Have you always liked metal?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So my first exposure to metal music was when I was 4 years old. Okay, so in the late 80s, early 90s, there was this band called Green Jelly.
Okay.
And they had Danny Carey from Tool on drums on it, and they were basically like, they basically conned their way into a record deal by saying that they were like the world's most famous animated band, and the record label was like, sure, we believe you, and then they signed them. So they did a heavy metal version of the Three Little Pigs, and it had like a claymation music video. And when I was 4 in like 1996, my dad bought the VHS for that for me, which in hindsight isn't something you want to buy for a 4-year-old.
No.
Because like there's a scene where like the pigs are perving on chicks at the beach and they're smoking weed. Like,
No, if he wanted to get you some claymation, he should have got you Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. That's what he should have got you.
But like it was something that didn't strike me as metal music because I was 4. Like, what do I know about music when you're 4?
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, this is cool, and they're singing about 3 little pigs. I'm entertained. And later on in life, I want to say around 2005, I started getting into more rock music.
Okay.
And then a few years later, I'm gonna sound so like such a millennial when I say this, but actually, what my gateway was into the wide world of rock and heavy metal was those Guitar Hero and Rock Band games.
You know what? I think that brought a lot of people in. I think just like because it was a cool game to play. You didn't have to have grew up on rock or metal or things like that to enjoy the game. For me,
Right.
it started out with, that looks easy, and I see you fucking up. Give me the guitar, let's go. And then somewhere
Right.
around the way, then you're like, wait, this is actually hard, and I feel like I'm actually playing in the band. Like, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that introduced me to a lot of music like Deep Purple and Faith No More and Queens of the Stone Age, actually, and Dream Theater. It actually was my gateway into OTAP. Like like those games actually got me into the Beatles, which actually was a strange thing because like my mom, who is the white parent, obviously, she was a huge Beatles fan, and I'd always make fun of her for it. But then when they came out with the Beatles Rock Band game, she was like, "Oh, I thought you hated them," and I was like, shut up, don't, just no."
Right. I'm not going to let you take this away from me.
Yeah, like I want you. She's so heavy. Just leave me alone.
Right.
Let me enjoy Abbey Road on my own.
Exactly. Don't come in here. No. Nope. Leave me alone.
Which actually, I mentioned Deep Purple.
Uh-huh.
My Twitter @name, Space Truckin' 92. Space Truckin' is a Deep Purple song off of the album Machine Head. And
I knew I'd seen the name somewhere. I just couldn't remember what it was from.
Yeah, and 92 is obviously the year I was born.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable.
Why is that?
Because I'm a 90s baby, and I'm going after like 30-year-old women.
All right, so for one, let me tell you. For one, there's nothing wrong with going after something that's seasoned. Okay, That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
And just as long as you're old enough.
Yeah, exactly. And always remember, and I tweeted this not long ago. Always remember, the single moms always have the best snacks, man. They always have the best snacks and the best juice.
Now we're just making it weird.
But check this out. So you're a '90s baby, but the thing is this: you don't strike me as you don't strike me as one of those '90s kids a kid that was born in the '90s that doesn't either respect or appreciate the history. Like for instance,
right.
My little brother, right? My little brother was born in '95. What's cool is he likes old school West Coast hip hop. Loves it. Knows us by every song, and a lot of that came from playing San Andreas. But whatever, fine. But
right.
he'll do that, and it's dope. Then he'll come out and ask me some dumbass question like, "So do I think Jay-Z is better than Lil Wayne?" And then he'll proceed to tell me how whack Jay-Z is. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. Listening to some of the metal bands that you're interested in, and just the history of which that you've researched and looked into, I can appreciate that. So no, it's not weird at all. You don't strike me as one of those obnoxious types at all. We can have conversation because I'm learning something from you right now, and I'm 30.
The way that I can really explain that is so. Around the time I was like 14, 15, because I dropped out of high school in my freshman year to help my family take care of my grandmother.
Mm.
So what I would do in my free time, because, looking after people is there's a lot of downtime in that, because most of the time they're just in their room.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to make sure that there's no telephone cord around their neck, which sounds morbid as fuck.
But it's a possibility.
Really what it is.
It could
right.
happen. Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would go around on internet message boards, and there's this one message board that I was on, which was just full of a bunch of like Mexican and black dudes from the Bay Area. And so around that time, I had gotten into the hip-hop group and record label Definitive Jux, mm-hmm. which is like the label that A$AP Rock and LP are on,
mm-hmm.
or were on at the time. The label's kind of like, they're just a T-shirt store now. But so those people actually got me interested in learning the history, because I like one of the moderators on that site. I was like, so I really like A$AP Rock. Is there anything that you would like point me towards? And he like gave me this entire dissertation on how like that kind of hip hop music comes from a lot of like Bay Area type stuff, and that I should get into stuff like Mac Dre and whatnot, which somehow led me into getting into Funkadelic somehow. and then led me into Jimi Hendrix, which led me into a bunch of just like weird shit from the 60s and 70s. But for some reason, a discussion on hip hop led me into like that kind of stuff. And I'm like 90% sure it was because like all of them were on the same drugs. But I'm not gonna knock it.
Yeah.
The music's similar in a kind of strange way. So yeah, I've always been interested in like the history of music that I've been listening to. Although I haven't paid much attention to hip hop over the past like 5 years. Because being completely honest, I was a Lupe Fiasco fan.
Nothing wrong with that.
And Lasers broke my heart so much that I just gave up.
Broke it. So wait. First of all, yes, Lasers was some bullshit. I will be the first to admit that.
Which Lasers has like 2 or 3 good songs on it.
But I expect more from a Lupe Fiasco album.
Exactly, especially after the Cool.
Exactly. Like you gave us the Cool, and this is the bullshit you give us. You thank us with. But it was so bad that he just completely turned you away from hip hop altogether.
Because like, understand, like, I was one of those teens who like swore they knew everything, like, and swore they were into the real kind of music that they were listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm into real hip hop. Fuck that Waka Flocka shit. and then when your idol puts out pop garbage, you don't know where to go after that.
Listen, every Lupe Fiasco fan that's listening to you right now completely agrees. We just didn't know that it affected you so much that he just completely like Lupe fucked up.
Yeah. So like every now and then, I'll come back when there's like a new Aesop Rock album or a new LP album. I kind of like Danny Brown. Mm-hmm. Odd Future's hard to get into sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, it's much more casual now than it was back then, and it's much more casual compared to like me being into rock music.
It's just not a part of your hobby anymore. Like you may go back and listen to it just maybe for nostalgic reasons. I used to listen to hip hop, so let me see what's going on type thing. Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong. I know every single word to shit like Aquemini and like even most recently I know every word to Run the Jewels too.
Yeah, exactly. No, I got you.
But like, I also was a Kanye West fan.
And what happened?
He actually kind of lost me around graduation. So I was never really able to get back into it. And even with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, I never really connected with that album. As much as everyone else says it's a great album, I don't know. Something's wrong with me, I guess.
No, because I kind of agree. Like those that time when he was releasing those two albums, I mean they were decent. I didn't really. I'll put it like this. Somewhere after Late Registration, he kind of evolved into something different, and you could see that evolving happening throughout Graduation. Like I remember looking for. I never forget. I went to Target to buy the album because I was so excited for it, and I remember going through the list looking for the deep song. So his first two albums had at least one or two deep songs on it that was awesomely produced, and it was something touching. And I went through Graduation. I went through it twice, and I couldn't find it. So I was like, well, all right. Well, no, I take that back. No. Late Registration had the song about his mom on it, right? I think that was the one. Yeah, okay. So that wasn't on Graduation. Graduation at the end, he was talking about a light beef between him and Jay-Z. And I say light beef in quotations because he was giving his perspective on it. But I think that's about as deep as it got. Now, don't get me wrong. He had Stronger, which I love that sample. And he had, the song he was talking about getting his money right. That was dope. And there were other dope songs on there, but I was missing something. And ever since then, I'd been missing something. Can't Tell Me Nothing is the name of the song.
With Graduation, there is like a lot of weirdness with like a lot of the samples he was using. Like, I think there was a song where he like sampled Steely Dan.
Yeah.
And like, there was the Daft Punk sample, and like I really feel like the song that really like separates the first half of his career to the second half is Flashing Lights.
Yeah. Yeah, because it took me a while to get into it because that wasn't for me at the time. That wasn't the Kanye that I was expecting, but it was the Kanye that I had to learn to get used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense.
yeah. So, and the video disappointed me too. So,
It doesn't help that around that time, 2007, I started like exploring other genres, and I was paying more attention to stuff like the stuff that I hadn't heard than new stuff from people that I've heard from before.
you were exploring. You were out there discovering again the magic of
Yeah,
music. Yeah.
yeah. Which is a lot of 15-year-olds don't do.
Yeah. That's true. You usually stuck into that whatever. When you're a teenager, you find yourself stuck into whatever genre either you feel like you're supposed to be listening to, or by proxy, that which you're exposed to. So I was
Right,
exposed to rap and hip hop and old school R&B, and I felt like
right.
that's what I was supposed to be listening to. Till one day I got in my friend, he had just got in the car, and so he was driving us to school, and he was listening to rock, or it was really loud, so it was probably metal. He was listening to, so I looked at him and I was like, "Why you?" I was like, "Man, what is this?" He was like, "No, it's cool. Just listen to it." And like so, throughout the rest of high school, like I would dab here and there, but I didn't really like let people know I was listening to it till I heard something. And actually, what I realized it was because I was heavy into and I'm still heavily into wrestling, but he played Inner Sandman in his car. And so and when I just started watching ECW.
Did you guys end up like doing the sing along with it?
Yes, I every time, every time, every time. So what happened was when
You have not lived until you had a group sing along to Enter Sandman.
exactly, that's why I like doing it in karaoke. But so what happened was I remembered, I was like, oh, I know this song, and he instantly became cool to me because Sandman came out to this song, and they
Right,
sing the entire first verse and hook before he even gets
right,
in the ring. And so to
right.
me, it became cool. And I was like, well, let me start branching out. And then I started looking into
You
other
know,
stuff.
my co-host for Metal for Brains, Shaggy, we host a wrestling podcast, and so we say every single time, like we mention the other podcasts, no matter which show it is, like metal and wrestling really do go hand in hand.
Yep. Yep. As evident
And,
as evident by Motorhead with Triple H.
yeah. And if you just want to ignore that really weird period in 1999 where WWF was getting songs done by like C Murda.
Oh, I remember that album. I remember that album. Yeah. Yep.
Actually, because on the wrestling podcast I play songs as the intro and outro. I actually played the Red Man No Chance in Hell theme for Vince McMahon during the intro. So what I did was I played the video of Vince McMahon and John Cena talking to each other, and at the time John Cena's still a rapper.
Yep.
So Vince McMahon's like, keep it up, my nigga. And then so
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It was
edited,
awkward.
I edited it so right as Vince McMahon says my nigga, I go straight into Redman.
That's terrible, man. That's terrible. Which episode is that? Because I want my listeners to hear that, and I want to go to it also.
The most recent episode, I believe it's episode 5.
Okay. I'm trying to remember the name of that album because I actually went to the store and bought that album because it was actually there were some nice songs on that album. Like I liked who did the Stone Cold theme, and he came out to it for a while, which actually fit.
Well, no, that wasn't that album, but Disturbed did do Stone Cold's theme, and he
Yeah.
did come out to it for like a year.
Okay.
That the rap album that they did was WWF Aggression.
Yeah. 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 That was it.
So that had a bunch of shit. Like it had Run DMC doing D-Generation X's
Which was a
theme. It had
great
like
song. It was a great song. I
it
loved
had
it.
like Method Man, Snoop Dogg, Redman, C Murder, the East Siders.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. It had like it had Ice-T doing the Godfather's theme,
Yeah.
Pimpin' Ain't Easy, which like that I feel like Pimpin' Ain't Easy is like the greatest wrestling theme song of all time.
And he came out to that
Because
for a
like
while.
Pimpin', just by the song title alone, that's just something that's going to be heard generations from now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I want to, well, before I even transition to that, let me finish up with your podcast. Why did you guys, how did the podcast come together, Metal for Brains?
So a few years ago, because we've been on like 2 extended breaks. I want to say we've done like maybe 15 episodes because we started out on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And when I started doing it, there are some episodes that are on YouTube and not on our podcast host. So I might put them up. I might find the audio for them and put them up as like lost episodes.
You could do the video on there as well. You could do video podcasts and upload those to your feed.
Yeah, not on the host that I'm on though.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But so, and they weren't video. They were just like a picture of the logo with the audio.
Oh.
Like it was very like you could tell it was us trying to figure out what was going on. But the idea for the show started out with me and Shaggy on the phone, and we were just talking about music, and I was like, so something I've always wanted to do is because I used to watch this show called That Metal Show on VH1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a bunch of old white dudes talking about metal, and you know they always go for like the hair metal bands like Def Leppard and Whitesnake and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed like they always like started shitting on like the grunge bands of the early '90s like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, who are metal bands, and I'm like, they're very important metal bands too,
Right.
and especially for like younger people. And so I was just like, I'm tired of all these metal shows having these old white out of touch hosts. Like nobody wants to hear about nobody wants to hear about AC/DC or you know Def Leppard or Motley Crue or you know just stuff like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
they want to talk, they want to hear about newer stuff, and they want to hear it from the perspective of people coming up. And I was also like, and you know the fact that the old white guys thing is like they're old and they're white, like you can't have, it's just an annoying combination. So Shaggy at the time was a part of a comic book podcast called Villains Never Sleep, which still runs, and
Okay.
they're pretty fucking awesome. So he was like, you should totally start a podcast about metal music, and I was like, so if I do it, would you be on it? And then it came to me like tweeting about it, seeing who would be interested in co-hosting with me, and then that's what ended up with the first episode, which is actually up on iTunes, and we've actually grown a lot since then. So starting this podcast made me feel like something that I created something that's good.
Yeah.
And is actually like can actually help people, because like we try not to be those people who, you know, say that, oh, we listen to genres other than hip hop, that means we're better than you. Like, we're not that people. Maybe Shaggy is.
Shout out to Shaggy.
I'm not that person, and so I try to keep the show just strictly about, that type of, like, metal music and rock music, and like I feel like it's important to have this kind of show because there's not a lot for black people in that genre. So what better than for me to create something by black people for black people, and I guess the whites can listen to.
Exactly. So check this out. On your first episode, you had this quote that said, "The best way to get rid of race is." I'm sorry. The best. What do you say? The best is it the best way to get rid of race? Oh, the best way to handle race or something of that nature isn't to get rid of it, is to embrace it. What? Tell us what you meant by yes, you did. You did say that because what you were talking about was you were going into why I believe you were talking about why there isn't so many blacks that listen to metal and
that was the first episode. Yeah. That first episode we did like 2 years ago. So I don't really remember a lot of it. That's why I'm like, oh wait, I said that. That's actually kind of smart.
It was profound. It was profound.
You don't get a lot of smart shit from me. But yeah, like, so I guess that was me saying, rebelling against all lives matter before that was a thing. But,
right.
And that's not me saying I'm a prophet. Please don't misconstrue that.
Trust me, I got you. I got you.
But I'm not going to Gene Simmons this. But what I'm trying to say is, like, with that, it's always been necessary for minority groups to have their own spaces with people like them talking about things that interest them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better to embrace it than to marginalize that group and ignore them. Because while race is a social construct, it very much is. It's a different social construct compared to gender, which we can get into a Tumblr dissertation later. But while it is a social construct, there's nothing that anyone's going to be able to do to change that for a really long time. So for now, ignoring it isn't going to fix anything. It's just going to help people marginalize minority groups even further. So it's something that people need to embrace. Like, okay, when I was at my first Queens of the Stone Age show,
mm-hmm.
I was talking to a fellow fan who happened to be this white guy, and I was talking about how Queens of the Stone Age's new drummer is this Haitian Black American guy from Baltimore. His name's John Theodore. And I was like, I've been a fan of this band for like 5, 6, 7 years now, and I think it's pretty cool that their new drummer is someone who I can relate to, and with him being black.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, oh man, why, it's not about race. And like, I thought about hitting that guy, but I didn't. I was just like, things don't always have to be about race, but you can't make fun of someone for relating to something like that.
Right.
Especially in a genre like rock or metal music, because you're acting like rock and metal music aren't dominated by white men.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, like, it went even as far as, like, in the early 90s, a lot of black people gravitated towards bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit, who implemented, like, hip-hop elements into metal. and that's what nu metal really is. And it was basically because, like, there weren't really any black people in the mainstream view, so people took what they can with music that they wanted to get into, and they just accepted that it was coming from white people, which I don't think could happen now, and I don't think it should happen now. I feel like if we want something to connect to, it has to be coming from us.
Exactly.
Like, it's time for us to start making it and start consuming it for us.
Exactly. I'll tell you what I thought of when I heard you say that. A lot of times, what I get frustrated with is, and this can be applied strictly to race, music, or anything. I feel like some white people that either they're ignoring that there are racial differences. I feel like they think by ignoring it either solves the problem or gets rid of the problem. When you said
Right.
that's not the way to go about it, you should embrace it, because there are racial differences and they're not all negative.
Right.
There are certain things that our race or our culture brings to the table that makes it beautiful. There are things that other races bring to the table that makes it beautiful. Prime example,
Right.
your podcast is black people appreciating black metal and all metal, but you're sort of unifying it for those people that are listening to my show right now and never knew that there was a parallel between that and hip hop. They love hip hop. They didn't feel like they could relate to metal. We've now, or on this episode, or with your podcast, have now given them a reason to merge. You know what I mean? And that's because of
And,
those racial differences.
and like, I really feel like, especially with things going the way they've been over the past few years,
Yeah.
um, metal music is a great outlet for anger and revolutionary ideals. And it's time that we started taking advantage of that, because, like, I don't know, there's not a lot of that coming from hip hop. There's not a lot of that coming from R&B. Or, there's a lot of it coming from hip hop, but it's also coupled in with, like, problematic views. Say what you will about Kendrick Lamar or whatnot.
Yeah.
But like, there's this band called Bleed the Pigs, which is fronted by this black woman named Kayla, and their songs are about black feminism and, like, fighting against white supremacy and stuff like that. And it's like the coolest kind of noise metal type music you can listen to, just because, like, the lyrics behind it and her ideals, and it's something that I relate to, and a lot of people would be able to relate to, just because it's something that everybody is dealing with right now. White supremacy is a huge topic, so, like, metal is a great voice for, like, youthful anger and whatnot.
I definitely thank you for creating that, your podcast, to exchange those opinions and views, and to help create an outlet for other people to do the same.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I'm sure there are other shows like us. I haven't listened to them, but if they do exist, that's awesome. We need more of it.
Yeah.
Because I was actually talking about, like, how rock music and metal music are financially dead in the water, and mainstream-wise too. Really, like, the only time metal is in the news is when some stoner band in Oregon names themselves Black Pussy, and they're a bunch of white guys.
Wow.
And Which, by the way, it blows my mind because their music's not bad, but I hate them because of that name. It's just the name alone. I'm just like, change your name and I would like you guys. And even then, if they changed their name, I probably wouldn't like them just because it was formerly Black Pussy. Yeah.
Exactly.
But like, what's needed to bring back rock and metal music in the forefront of mainstream culture and whatnot? And someone, I believe it was Lupe Fiasco on Twitter, she had said to bring in more black people. And at first I was like, well, we've always been a part of it. We just never really got a chance, aside from like bands like Seven Dust and whatnot. But the more I think about it, I'm like, well, that's what Afropunk was originally supposed to do. It was supposed to uplift like a black punk and metal and rock bands, and it doesn't really do that much now, as much as it's just a blanket term for alternative black music, regardless of genre. But like, I really do feel like Afrocentric kind of rock music, metal music is definitely what's needed to bring back the genre in a refreshing way, and also it's just needed, period, because we've said before, people need that outlet.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely, I mean, I support the genre, and I know I'm always surprised now when I find more and more people, black people, that are listening to it. I want to change gears a little bit. I want to go back to something you said earlier. You were talking about how you dropped out of high school freshman year to help your family. Was your family supportive of that idea, or did you just kind of just like, this is what I'm doing? Like, kind of take me through your mindset of why you decided to do that.
Well, so there's a backstory to this.
Okay.
In the middle of 2006, things started getting rocky with my parents, and so I ended up moving to my hometown of Peoria, Illinois, with my mother. And I'm from Peoria, but I moved to Chicago when I was 3. So I went to Peoria Central High School, which is the same school that Sean Livingston was at.
Oh, shout out to Sean Livingston.
Yeah, and so I went to school there for a semester, and around Christmas time, my parents started to patch things up. So we moved back to Chicago, and at the time, my grandmother's health wasn't that well. She was in her 80s. She was having problems with dementia, and we had a long conversation about, like, so what are we gonna do? And my options were to find a school in Chicago to go to, and we did try. I was previously accepted at a Hyde Park Career Academy, and when I moved, and then moved back, and I tried to get back into it, and they wouldn't let me. So my only option at that point was Harlan, which is at the time was a really, like, not a super safe school to go to. I don't know about it now, but so I had made the decision that I would drop out and help take care of my grandmother at nights. So I would sleep all day and be up all night, and my parents were supportive of that decision, mostly because they really needed the help, because my dad was working and my mom's hasn't always been in the greatest of health either, so she can't. That's not like a one-person job for her.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's the story behind that.
Did you ever go back or get your GED?
Yeah, in 2012, actually, I think September 11th, 2012, I got my GED.
Good job, man. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
can I ask about the health issue your grandma was going through?
Go ahead.
So take us through it. What was it, and how in taking care of her, how were you dealing with that mentally?
Um, well, it was basically just, you know, she was old,
Mm-hmm.
and, she how I dealt with it mentally is that I found a way to laugh about it. Because, there would be times where I would get up and it's like 7 in the morning and I go into the living room and she has like a backpack with a bunch of stuff in it. And I'll be like, well, Grandma, what are you doing? And she'll be like, I'm waiting for the school bus. And she'll just like look away from me and stare out the window. And like at that point, the only thing you could do is laugh about it, which
Yeah.
at the time I laughed heartily about it. Yeah, and that's really the only way I could really deal with that. There was also a time where my mom's best friend, Mary, she came over to help with like feeding my grandmother because she was like refusing to eat soup.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like feeding her, and then like after 10 minutes or so, she stopped eating. So my mom's friend started to pull the bowl away from her, and she like slapped my mom's friend's hand, and she said, "Touch my soup again, and I'll slap the black off of you."
You know what? I know people listen to it and they think, well, your grandma was going through something. Why would you laugh at it? Here's the thing. Laughter is the best medicine. Is more than just some cool cliche ass quote. Like seriously, like my aunt, she was going through her bout with her. She was in the final stages of her breast cancer, and she would do things, and it was okay to laugh about it because it doesn't mean that you are any less concerned. This is humorous and it's okay. Like we would laugh with her about it, Like for instance,
Right.
I've mentioned this before on other episodes, but I have congestive heart failure. There was a point when I was devastated. Like I was hurt by whatever. I mean, it's under control now, but when I began to laugh at it, I knew then that I had control. I had control back. And the same thing with our loved ones. We feel like we're so out of control. We don't have any control, and there's nothing that we can do about it. The second you're able to laugh at it and boost yourself up, one, you're in a better mood about it. Two, you feel like that's something that you now have a handle on again. So I don't have a problem with that whatsoever.
And yeah, it's like there's a difference between where the laughter is coming from, and
Exactly.
there's a lot of cases where like you go through something traumatic and you start laughing, and it's almost sort of a defense mechanism to keep you from just breaking down completely.
Yeah, that's true.
Like in entertainment and TV and movies, there's a common trope where like a day is just so bad on someone that they just start maniacally laughing. And like I've had a few days where that's happened before. I don't know if that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
But like
whatever keeps you in the best of moods, man.
right, and it's like I wasn't laughing at her. Like it was just like I found the humor in this, and it's like great to reminisce about this with other people who experienced it with me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What, changing gears again, what matters most to you? What, like, in anything. You wake up every day, what matters to you?
Um, Making sure that I am a better person than I was the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's been a tough journey because, like, I want to say up till about 2 years ago, I was, like, kind of a reckless asshole. Like, I would be, I would troll people about, eh, I would troll people about music. I would troll people about whatever, just because, like, I found it funny.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't do that anymore, just because, like, I'm just learning to respect the humanity of other people, and like, there was a time where I found out that you know there's a point where, like, okay, so sorry for, like, being all over the place
No,
right
you're
now.
good. You're good. You're good.
But so the LGBT community, LGBTQ, whichever you want to use,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's a big topic right now, and I'm willing to admit, like, maybe like a year or two ago, I didn't know that, like, things like the word tranny was a slur,
Right.
and
Me either.
so with a lot of stuff like that, I I take note of it. I do what I can to make myself better through it, and I try to make sure other people recognize it when they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's pretty much my plan for every day. Like, with family and friends, I have a lot of conversations with my mom where I have to correct her on stuff.
I'm finding
She's
I have to
old,
do that too sometimes with my parents.
yeah, but like, she's accepting of it. Like, she learns from it too.
What concerns you the most? Like, what bothers you?
What bothers me?
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me is, like, sometimes I'll find myself in a position where I overthink a lot. I overthink a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So that bothers me, where it's like sometimes I'll do something that necessarily wasn't said in the right way, and I'll, like, immediately recognize it maybe like 5 minutes later, and then I'll just start kicking myself over it instead of, like, acknowledging that and then trying to use restraint to the point where, like, it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Like if I thought it over maybe a little bit more, it wouldn't happen the next time. Also, people on Twitter bother me. um, um, like, okay, so uh, new blackie type people, they bother me.
The new
You
blacks?
know,
You talk about the hoteps?
yeah, yeah. Which, by the way, like the first time you said, like, because I listened to the show before, and you were like, on the air podcast, OTAP, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, not to be confused with HOTEP, right?
Exactly.
There's a lot that bothers me. Like, the thing that, like, bothers me the most about it is, like, that I don't really show the amount of restraint that I wish I could.
Do you find that to be because it is social media, or why is that? Like, if you feel like you could show more restraint but you don't, that's obviously a choice that you're making.
Yeah,
So why is
yeah.
that?
With social media, like, it isn't as instant as it is like talking with people.
Right.
You type it out, you think it out, and then you release it to the world. And uh, sometimes I don't remember that sometimes. So sometimes I'll just like write really scathing things about people, and like I'll feel bad about it, but then I'll just be like,
It what's done is done type thing.
Yeah, and then I'll be like, that guy was kind of dumb anyway. He might have deserved it.
Right. Is it a form of? But you're not really being like in your head, like you're not sitting there. You're not being malicious. Is it more
Right.
more entertaining to you, or because we kind of talked about earlier, like sometimes people kind of might take you for being an asshole, which isn't really the case if they know you.
People like what Twitter's biggest people on Twitter's biggest like thing to do with me is like say that I don't enjoy anything.
Well, we just had a podcast all about you and the stuff you enjoy, so that's bullshit.
Yeah, like and like during E3, people were like yelling at me because like I wasn't as positive about things as everyone else was, and like I can be a cynic, but like I'm not trying to be like I don't. One of the things I'm learning, and I have started to learn over the past year or so, is to express displeasure with something without necessarily shitting on the people who do like it.
Right, which is a common problem on the Twitter.
It's a fine line. It's a very fine line. Like, okay, so I used to tweet about how I didn't like Beyonce.
Hold on, wait. Full and fair disclosure. This is a podcast that enjoys Beyonce. We don't want any kickback from the Beehive. The thoughts and feelings about Beyonce are solely that of Space Truck in '92, Corey from Metal Brains. I was just fucking with you, man. Go ahead, man.
Give them my email.
Direct all your anger and your angst to Space Truck in '92.
So how I would go about that is like I would just outright shit on her, and but no, like I don't do that anymore now because like I've learned that there are people who do like her and don't share my reviews who end up resenting that, and I don't want people to resent me for that stuff. Mm-hmm. So if someone ever wants to engage me about stuff like that, it's just like I don't like pop music, and there's nothing against people who do, but I personally don't like the music. And then I'll just leave it at that. And I can still do it sometimes. I will take the first opportunity to shit on an Imagine Dragons fan.
They got a couple songs I like, man. That's like you're not a real big fan of Bullet for My Valentine, and they have a couple of songs that I like.
Yeah, I don't like. I'm surprised we haven't made an episode of Metal for Brains that's just shitting on the screamo music.
Oh man, I can't believe you don't like Imagine Dragons or Bullet for My Valentine for that matter.
Like my criticism for Imagine Dragons is like they're hip hop music covered by a rock band.
I never thought of it like that, but I can understand the frustration with that. It's almost like they are using one genre to gain the respect of another by presenting it a totally different way.
Yeah, and like, so I had a friend who's a producer, and he told me about how, because their producer is a hip hop producer, and he told me their recording process was just that. He would make beats and then send it to them and tell them to cover it, and then write their lyrics to it. And I told a friend about that, and they were like, so that's why Kendrick Lamar sounded just right at home when they did that collaboration.
Okay, I got you. It all makes sense now, man.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I think I've covered everything that I have. Is there anything that I might have missed that you wanna be sure we don't leave without mentioning?
Well, I just wanted to say to whoever's listening out there, uh, find whatever way possible it is to embrace who you are. It doesn't matter if you think the most extreme musical genre is great, and you're like, say, you're black and you're afraid someone will call you out for listening to white music. Don't care about that. Don't care. Like, do what makes you happy. Dress how you want. Wear your hair as you want. If you want to wear a mohawk that's colored like a peacock or some shit, do it. Just do it. And like, there's a lot of privilege that comes into saying that, but just do whatever you can to make sure that you're comfortable with you, because that's something that, like, a lot of people say, but it's still something that needs to be heard, because there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable with who they are. If you're big, rock with it. If you're super skinny, and rock with it. Like, there's really nothing wrong you can do with you, as long as you're not affecting other people. And how you look, what you listen to, what your tastes are, they're not affecting other people.
I would love to have everybody on your podcast to come back on mine for one of my roundtables. Like, I'd like to have a Metal for Brains roundtable if it helps promote you guys' show, and we have a roundtable discussion, and we bring it up there and we really go in and dive and dissect that. Like, I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be awesome. I would make sure that Shaggy doesn't show up to that so that people will have positive opinions.
Cool, man. Go. Hey, take a moment and plug something, man. Plug your podcast. Plug Shaggy's podcast. Plug whatever you want, man. Everything you got going on and where we can find you.
All right, so I am at Space Truckin' 92 on Twitter. I ramble a lot, and you'll be able to tell that through my tweets, if you haven't been able to tell that through this podcast. I am the host of Metal for Brains, which you can find on YouTube. Not YouTube. Yeah, you can find on iTunes at if you search for Metal for Brains. Otherwise, there's a link in my Twitter bio to you can listen to that through your web browser. We're also on Stitcher, so you could search Metal for Brains through that. Mm-hmm. I'm also the host of the Three-Handled Moss-Covered Wrestling Podcast with my friend Shaggy Black. You can find us if you search TTHMC on iTunes and Stitcher.
All right, guys. That's Corey. Corey, from the host of the Metal for Brains podcast. Check him out. Listen to it. It is a really great show. Also, check out his wrestling show. You know what? I'm probably have you guys back on, you and Shaggy, to promote the wrestling podcast, and we'll do the same thing there. And I am going to be on that one next week, right? I think so.
Yeah.
So
you're going to be on Metal for Brains too, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's recording tomorrow. So at the time this comes out, you guys will probably hear me on both places. So that'll work.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of Corey to go around.
Absolutely.
And that is not a fat joke, although it could be.
Oh, man. Well, good deal, man. Thanks for coming on. I'd like to thank our guests for coming on today. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, send an email to otap@writeme.com. Follow the conversation on Twitter by searching the hashtag OTAP, that's OTAP, or following us on Twitter at OTAP Show. You can find the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Android users can listen to the podcast on Podcast Republic. Just download the app and search OTAP Show. On behalf of our guest, I'm your host, Corey, and And I'll see you back here next week on the Air Podcast, starring you.